It's your Tuesday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day. Hope everybody's having a great day out there today. Tremendous show. A little bit different for a Tuesday. An additional guest on today's show, which means everything kind of gets bumped around, moving Wolves talk to the end of the show. They had a nice win over the Lakers last night. A little bit of a schedule win, but they certainly looked much better than they have for a long time in beating LA 109-80 at Target Center. So we'll get to that at the end of the show. Keith Rashad joins me for Vikings Poetry. That'll be the third of three guests. I'm sure he's just going to complain nonstop about being bumped to the third spot. I will not hear the end of this, but these are the choices we make. Andrew Krammer with the film review will be second in the lineup today. Vikings film review. He will indulge my Vikings hot takeaways as well from that 23-22 win over Arizona. First up, kind of a what did I miss today is our first guest, Nick Brady. Vikings fan, you might have seen him. I got to set this up. You might have seen him on Sunday's broadcast right after Aaron Jones dropped what would have been the go-ahead touchdown early in the fourth quarter. Fox cameras show the replay. Then they cut to Brady and show a slow-motion reaction of his face, and it's just priceless. And a lot of us reacted in the moment. We're like, oh my gosh, this guy is perfect. This is going to become a GIF, a meme. And sure enough, everybody's still reacting to it. So I got a hold of Nick Brady on Monday. You can watch our interview on the Star Tribune's YouTube page, but you can also listen to it right here. Just kind of asked him about the reaction, the aftermath, that his phone was blowing up. Didn't realize he was on camera until starts getting text messages, Facebook messages, Snapchats. Everybody's like, what's going on? I just saw you on TV, stuff like that. So priceless, and he was a great sport. He was a lot of fun to talk to, big-time Vikings fan. So I am going to play that for you right now. I am here with Vikings fan Nick Brady. You might have seen Nick on the Vikings broadcast Sunday as they were losing to the Cardinals. I believe it was probably late third quarter, early fourth quarter. Things were not looking good, Nick, and the cameras caught you in a moment of pure fandom, right?
Yeah, just stuck in the moment, basically reacting. Apparently, from what I'm seeing from all I've been made a meme now. So basically, everyone else's reaction was exactly what I had on my face, and basically how I'd react from the couch from the previous weeks of the team. So
but in the moment, as I tried to find you today, and I even used it, I think yesterday, hey, this guy's going to be a GIF. It was beautiful. I saw it as it happened. I'm like, this is exactly how everybody's thinking right now. And people have replied that way. So what is I'm sure your text messages, as you're sitting there at the game, you probably aren't aware that you've been on TV, right?
No, I mean that missed touchdown by Jones happened, and then before I know it, my phone is going off, my watch is buzzing. I had my phone in my pocket. I was just in the moment at the game, and I was like, what is going on? And then I look, and I have 70-something text messages, Snapchats flowing in. I've got Facebook Messenger requests, I'm hearing from people that I went to college with that I haven't talked to probably 9-10 years. And then the first one I open up is that clip you just showed, and I'm like, oh boy. And then, on the way home, I was talking to my girl, and I was like, is this going to be something? Is this going to be a meme? And then these Vikings fan pages on Facebook, or having the picture, and just it's just been I didn't have this on my bingo card for 2024, I'll tell you that. So
on social media, at least in the interactions I've had, people have been polite and asked, are you okay with this being a GIF? Are you okay with this being a meme?
Absolutely. There's worse things I guess you could be made a meme of. I wasn't dipping my chicken strips in a pop, or using a hot dog as a straw. So all
Are those things that you do, Nick? Are those
no,
things
not
that you
things
do?
that I do.
I'm just kidding.
You just see stuff out there, and
right.
there's I'm definitely okay with it. I mean, I've been a Vikings fan my whole life, and it's cool. It's cool to be associated with the team you love. So
probably not the first time you've worn that expression. Then, if you've been a Vikings fan your whole life,
definitely not. Like I said, I was telling people that that's the exact face I make sitting on the couch watching the game at home. And I just I think it's very very raw and authentic of apparently all Vikings fans that are out there. So
but then they come back to win. I'm sure happiness all abounds. Do you go to most games? Is this rare that you'd go to a game? How many games do you go to in person?
No, I've tried to go at least one game. My parents took me a lot of games when I was younger, in the Metrodome, and then that stint at TCF. Like we went to, games. I witnessed the Seahawks wild card game at TCF with my brother. But I think I was trying to think back. I think I've only missed 2 games ever since I was like in 4th grade. That one would have been like the 2020 season when they didn't have any fans, and then didn't get to one last year either. But no, it definitely makes it worthwhile. Definitely makes you want to go again. I will never turn down the opportunity to go to a game. So.
Where were you sitting? Were you like close to where the plays were happening, close to the drop pass?
Yeah, so we were sitting in section 134. It was like row 2, so it was basically that end zone where the drop pass was. So yeah, we had really really good seats. It was kind of on a whim thing. We purchased the tickets Friday, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do this. We haven't done it, so let's go.
And was it the same corner where Jones catches the winning touchdown then, or was it opposite?
It was the opposite corner.
Okay, that's right. It was third quarter then fourth quarter. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you didn't get to. Would have been nice if they would have showed your reaction when they won, at least, right?
And that was the thing too. After all that stuff was like sent to me, because the game sealing interception was on the other side of the field from me. So then, you're constantly like, where's the camera at? Which one of you Fox guys, made me into a meme? So,
so like, what were your friends like saying to you when they're texting you all this stuff? Are they just like cracking up? Are they like, what you're going to be famous? Like, what are they saying to you?
Yeah. Like a lot of the group chats that I'm in a fantasy football group with my buddies, and they're like, oh, like that's going to be out there like that. I think in the moment they knew that something was going to happen. And the other group text, I mean, we have a kickers and punters only league. We call it the leg league.
Come on.
It was, yeah, I know. It was up until that point, it was going off because, I mean, there was a lot of kicks, and there was, it was a good day to be a kicker. And, but yeah, it was just like, oh, you get we saw you on TV or saw you on TV,
Right. That's great.
Or a lot of like, are you at the game type things too, so confirming a lot of that. So,
I think you're in a Hawkinson jersey, right? Is that
I was,
not Bernard Berrien or some other 87 of the past.
I try to, I mean, I have jerseys in my closet, but that Hawkinson one, I mean, how could you not go for that guy and have that guy's name on your back? So,
final thing, like I said, they do come back and win. Nick, this is great, by the way. Nick Brady, loving getting a chance to talk to you. They come back and win again. They're 10-2. Like, what's your feeling about the season in general? Like, it's been, aside from a few of those moments, it's been pretty good vibes along the way here.
It's been, I mean, every game they're in it, they're there, and it's. You find yourself getting comfortable watching them play, and then before you know it, you're on the edge of your couch, like hoping, or standing up, giving a facial expression that the world is seeing, and it's been great. I mean, it's being a Vikings fan to a T, and it's a ride. It's a great ride.
Always a ride. Well, next game you're at, we'll have to watch for you. We'll see if you make any more expressions, see if anything else comes of this. But that was great. As soon as I saw it, I was watching on TV yesterday. I was not at the game. I'm watching there. I'm like, oh man, that was pure. That was perfect. It was just a moment, and I knew that I had to talk to you. So I appreciate you taking the time today for being a good sport about all of it, and nothing embarrassing about it, but just for being fun about it. And I do appreciate that. So take care, and best of luck in your fandom the rest of the way.
Absolutely, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the internet doing its thing and doing what it does, and it's been nice, so.
Didn't take long to find you. Like a half an hour after a social media request, I had like 3 people like, "Yep, that's Nick Brady. I know that guy." So There you go.
Awesome. All positive. So hopefully there's no photoshops. Of course not. I mean, of course that won't happen.
Just this one's just pure, and it'll be. But it'll get run out there. I'm sure it'll get run out there when something suspect happens to the Vikings at some point. But that's
Absolutely.
That's all in good fun too. Yep. Awesome, Mick. Thanks again. We'll talk to you later.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Many thanks again to Nick Brady. A good sport has the perfect perspective on all of his sudden 30 seconds, 30 minutes, however long the fame lasts. It's the internet. If he becomes a meme, his face will become longer, etched into our memories, Vikings fans, for a long time. But appreciate him jumping on with me, talking this through. And I think the reason it resonated was so many people said, like, his expression was exactly how everybody was feeling in that moment, and certainly more fun, easier to talk about right now for him, for Vikings fans, because Aaron Jones, of course, like we talked about, comes back and grabs the winning touchdown, and with like a minute left, they win 23-22. It becomes a turnaround story, becomes a story of redemption, not just of this awful moment and a bad game for Aaron Jones. So again, thank you to Nick Brady. Appreciate everybody helping out to find Nick Brady. And just a fun one today to start things off with. Let's look at the film with Andrew Krammer from the Star Tribune. Plenty to dissect from the Vikings' 23-22 win over the Cardinals. Still doesn't seem entirely real that they won that game, Andrew, because it was precarious, but they took their first lead. Like 23-22 was their very first lead of the game with like a minute left. And they kind of, came back and then held on. And then I think Ben Gessling, our colleague, tweeted that their win probability for the Cardinals was up to like 91% when they got to first and goal at the 5. But that 9% comes through for them. What did you think of the game just in general before I get to my hot takeaways and the film?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a thrilling game. One that going into it, I thought if this were in Arizona, it felt like the Cardinals should be, I don't know if favored, but I might pick them to win that game. The Cardinals are probably the best coach team they've faced since, probably Sean McVay. Yeah, Sean McVay and the Rams. And the only difference is Matthew Stafford, in my opinion, is a much better quarterback than Kyler Murray. The Vikings just had to chase him around enough in that game, and they did a good job in the red zone, obviously, which we'll get to. But it was just a thrilling end to a season that Sam Darnold, a different reclamation quarterback here, gets to show that he is the guy that he's been showing in these fourth quarter moments with another comeback. I did read somewhere too, this was the first go-ahead touchdown he's thrown in the final 2 minutes or overtime of his career, obviously coming a week after he led the game-winning drive for that field goal in Chicago.
That's amazing. Yeah, so he's getting it done in the clutch. They're winning differently now, because a lot of they're 7-1 in one-score games, but I do feel like a lot of their earlier one-score games were they were playing from ahead, and then someone like kind of got close at the end, and there was like onside kicks they had to recover, or they were just kind of hanging on defensively. They haven't had to do it this way very often.
No, they haven't. No. And for them to come back in a flurry the way they did on offense, it just shows that Sam Darnold can bounce back. And because honestly, when you look at that first half, a lot of it was on Sam Darnold. I think initially I was thinking protection issues, who's not IDing what. Only one of those 3 third down sacks they took in the first half, if you can follow all those numbers. 3 times in the first half they were sacked on third down to end the drive. Only one of those I thought was a protection issue. The other 2, Sam just needed to get rid of the ball or not run unnecessarily. And he settled in. O'Connell continued to show faith and trust in him. And Sam, much like Aaron Jones did, kept rewarding him there at the end.
Let's do some hot takeaways, and we'll get to more of the film. Hot takeaway number one, this whole season, Andrew, now hinges on the tender hamstring of a 34-year-old cornerback named Stephon Gilmore.
Oh boy, that was a tough one. And that was a tough game to lose him too. And that's a good takeaway to start off with. I don't think that's too hot. I don't think that's too spicy. I think it's just right, because Stephon Gilmore is so important to what they do. He was somebody who was covering Marvin Harrison Jr. very well to start that game. And then all of a sudden when he's out, you notice how quickly Kyler Murray and the Cardinals coaching staff notice it. They start targeting Fabian Moreau, his replacement, ad nauseum, get 2 defensive pass interference penalties, get the touchdown in the second half to Marvin Harrison Jr. Gilmore, for what he does, and credit to the Vikings, because it's December. It was December 1st in that game, and he gets banged up. So this is around the time of year you'd expect it, but they kept him relatively low mileage up to this point by playing a lot of zone, not asking him to run with receivers very often. That changed this game. They went into this game saying, we need to play more man-to-man coverage. We're going to ask our secondary to run, which is why they built in seemingly some rest time for Harrison Smith for the first time since September. He said after the game, I'm not injured. I was telling people close to me, like, hey, don't worry if I'm out of the game. I'm not injured. This was all planned. So he got taken out of the game even while Stephon Gilmore was hobbled as well. It just showed their commitment to trying to keep those guys fresh, but it got Gilmore seemingly injured. He's running so much, his left hamstring gives out. And if this is not a short-term deal, if he can't come back right away, you're going to face Kirk Cousins trying to bounce back against, off of his really bad performance last week, trying to bounce back with a really talented offense coming into town. And then obviously the stretch run with the Packers, Seahawks, and Lions at the very end. So yeah, they need him. They need him, especially for the playoffs. The only good thing is that they've built up such a lead at 10-2. If you got to sit him and be conservative with him, you might as well do it and just make sure that you've got a healthy version of him come January. Yeah,
especially if it gets to the point where you feel like you can't catch Detroit if you lose a game or two here. You're going to be in the playoffs. You're going to be a road wild card team in that scenario. I mean, there's still very much a chance to catch Detroit at this point, just based on, hey, if Detroit loses to the Packers on Thursday night, the Vikings could be tied with Detroit by the end of the weekend. So not giving up on that, but you're right. They've got to be smart about him, kind of weigh the balance of where he's at versus, when it's most important to have him on the field. Number 2, Andrew, of the hot takeaways. Let's get to that right now. I would blitz the Vikings up the middle on pretty much every passing down. Is that too much to ask for a defense to do that? Because I feel like they are so susceptible right now to that almost the Mike Zimmer double A gap blitz. They just get overwhelmed pretty easily, whether it's the protection schemes or Darnold. They don't adapt to the up the middle pressure very well.
Yeah, it's probably more Sam Darnold than anything. I think Garrett Bradbury's generally been pretty good at identifying these things. I talked to Brian O'Neill after the game, and you're probably referencing too. There was specifically a 3rd and 4 in the first half where it was a cover 0 and everyone came up the middle, and there was no preparation for this. And Brian O'Neill after the game said they got good coaches too. So I think part of it was this offense was not prepared for those kind of pressures in those moments. It was 3rd and 4 midfield at that moment. They did not seem like they were looking or trying to bait them into showing their hand in pressures. If you anticipate a blitz happy team, which the Cardinals generally have not been, you're going to try and hard count them. You're going to try and get them to show their hand, or at least add some kind of hesitation to your offense that gets them to show. And they didn't do that in that moment. Clearly they weren't expecting it. So I think part of it was getting out coached. I wouldn't put it all on the interior line, although they remain an easy punching bag because they're not the best interior line. Bradbury especially. Bradbury, I think, had some rough moments in this game that after a rough November through the AFC South, you got to wonder if his future goes beyond this year in Minnesota or much longer. I just think that personnel-wise, they got to look into upgrading some of these pieces. But I did think, too, a couple of those 3rd down sacks in the first half were on Darnold. Like, Darnold has a free runner off the edge. He's got to throw hot, as they say, which just means you need to recognize that there's nobody that can block this person. They're bringing more than we can. You need to get rid of the ball as the quarterback. And then there was the first one he took. there was just a 4-man rush, and he got spooked off Cam Robinson chasing his guy out the back, and he probably thought he might get the ball hit in terms of like a forced fumble or strip sack or something behind him. So he just runs when he doesn't need to. I do think that Darnold is a part of this. He's not totally absolvent of blame here. But in general, I can't disagree that this interior line is not the best in the NFL.
Well, and there was a play, I remember seeing the replay. I'm not sure which of the sacks it was, but they showed blitz on one side, but then bailed out, went and doubled Jefferson and brought it from the other side, and Blake Brandel sitting there blocking nobody, and Darnold gets smoked. Yeah,
that was in the second half. You're totally right. There was one where Brandel just did not adjust. And he's not, when you try to take a 6'4" college tackle and make him a guard, and the whole point of that, or part of the point, was to get more size in the middle. It was to help push. It was to help create running lanes. But when you do that, you don't have a guy that can move very well. So he doesn't adjust to stunts very well. He's late to movement like that. And then when you ask him to run block, like they do all these guys, he doesn't get to the second level very well to linebackers. There was multiple times where their runs were chased down or perimeter throws were chased down because he wasn't getting to that next level, nor Reisner was. So they've got limitations. You're right. A lot of limitations on that interior line.
Last hot takeaway is actually spinning towards next week. I think Kirk Cousins gets mostly cheers in the introductions on Sunday because Twitter, social media is not real life. I think he'll get mostly cheers. What do you think?
Did you? So what was it like on the broadcast? Could you hear at all, or did they talk at all about in stadium? They showed a replay of, I think it was Kirk Cousins' pick 6 for the Falcons that he threw to the Chargers last week, and the crowd was cheering it. Like they were cheering Kirk Cousins' demise already, and this was like, I think this was a part of the game where there wasn't much to cheer for the Vikings, so maybe they were just looking for something to root on. But I don't know. I think there's enough kind of you chose them over us, which. If you're paying attention and you're a fan,
which isn't true.
No, it's not true. It absolutely is true. Yeah, it is.
They didn't want him. They were so happy he left. That's me.
Mike, where are you getting that from, Mike?
I don't think they wanted to keep him. I don't think they wanted to keep Kirk Cousins. I don't think they wanted him.
Facts still matter. There was an offer on the table for him to come back.
There was an offer on the table.
Come on, what are we doing here? Like they wanted to sign him at the right price point, but maybe they set that price point knowing he was going to walk away. You could say that. You could say that it was a disingenuous offer.
Yes,
that it was so low. They thought there's no way he's going to take it. He'll get better. Right. That could be the case. Certainly.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
But at the same time, if there was no other suitor, if Atlanta didn't pay more, he would have come back. And it was that close because apparently there seemed to be no other team other than Atlanta that wanted him. I think Vikings fans, whether you think they didn't want him or not, Vikings fans are going to have that kind of jadedness of like, you were playing well when you got hurt here and you chose to leave for the money, which he did. And immediately he's seeing it not totally work out for him. So I do think there's some reap what you sow from Vikings fans there.
I think it'll be interesting. The reaction will be interesting at the very least. And I should point out, which I think I've pointed out at least once already, Kirk Cousins now leads the NFL in interceptions and fumbles going into Sunday's game. So
yikes.
Not great for Kirk right now. If you've been riding the Darnold roller coaster, I think Darnold has 10 interceptions and 7 fumbles this year. I think Kirk has 13 interceptions and 12 fumbles. So you don't necessarily get, even if Darnold is seemingly projected as the more risky player, that's 8 more. I don't think all the fumbles are necessarily turnovers, but I think putting the ball on the ground, he's definitely been a more turnover prone player this year than Sam Darnold, which is interesting because Darnold definitely makes more kind of over the middle big time throws, I think, than Kirk Cousins makes.
That is interesting because we knew when he was at his best and most comfortable, he was not a super turnover prone quarterback. He fumbled a lot. I remember when he came to Minnesota, he was always somebody who fumbled a lot, but O'Connell had worked to get that interception total down. So if he's throwing 4 picks like he did against the Chargers, who are a good defense, but man, that's the kind of game that they got to win. And I guess it will be interesting to see how the fans react to him in large. I do think there will be a smattering that boo him. I do think there will be a lot of people who would like to see the Vikings show him up in this game. But
sure, yes.
After 6 years, I guess I wouldn't be shocked if there is some kind of welcoming of him because he was obviously by the end of it. Mike, you remember when he first came here in 2018 compared to when he left, a total night and day change from like, it was you were the guy who got paid, you better win us everything. And then why didn't this work out? It's all your fault. To then all of a sudden by the end of it, it's Kirko Chains. He's this cult hero. So yeah, it was quite the arc for him in Minnesota.
Didn't he do the Gallahorn shirtless? Did he do that?
I think he did after the ACL or the Achilles tear. Yep,
after the Achilles tear. Yeah. So So that's what's making me think he'll get a nice reception. But of course, they want to beat him. So we'll see. A lot to be sorted out before Sunday's game. Let's get to the film quick. And speaking of fumbling, Aaron Jones puts it on the ground twice. Gets to stand next to Kevin O'Connell for a few series after that, but does redeem himself with the game-winning touchdown catch later. If you look at all of them, it's kind of similar. Like he's close to the ground on a lot of them. Ball gets punched out. Do you feel like this is just kind of like a streak where it's just been a bunch of good plays against him? Is there something more that you need to worry about? Is it the rib injury? Like how are we factoring in these fumbles for Aaron Jones, who's not usually a fumbler?
Yeah, he's not. He's already tied his career high with 5 this season, got 5 games to go. This is the first time in his 8-year career he's had a 3 straight fumbles in 3 straight games, obviously 4 in over 3 games here now. They've all come after that rib injury in Jacksonville, and he won't say it. And he said yesterday, I'm not going to make any excuses. That's not who I am. I do wonder if that's playing at least a part in maybe why he's not tucking the thing so tightly, if he's wearing a rib protector he's not used to. I have not looked at the Zapruder film so closely to determine that. But when you looked at the Arizona Cardinals fumbles, it was Sean Murphy bunting the same player, punching it out 2 separate times within his first 4 touches of that game. I do think that they targeted him and were targeting him because he had been fumbling. So that happens. These things start to snowball if you don't bow up and really try to full Tiki Barber 5-point hold on to that thing at all times. And I do think he can be a little loose with it. So maybe there's just a little bit of not focusing on that as a problem because it hadn't been a problem for him. It was just kind of this, I'll fix it. I don't need to worry about it. I do expect moving forward there to be a massive focus on this. I do not expect that problem or issue to happen again in terms of him not correcting it in some way. I just do wonder. It's weird. All of them have come after that Jacksonville game when he injured his ribs. He was not on the injury report last week, but he was the 2 weeks prior against the Titans and Bears. So it doesn't mean it's not affecting him. It just means that there's a certain threshold for treatment that requires reporting in the NFL. Guys play injured without being on the injury report all the time. So it doesn't mean it's not bothering him, but he's not going to say it. And until we see him hold on to the ball better, it's going to be hard to say that maybe is not an issue right now, because these, especially rib injuries, like these things don't heal unless you're not taking just pounding after pounding every week like these guys do. Well, and that's such a push-pull to it because he's obviously their best running back. He's one of their most important players. Like I've been saying all year, like I think he's terrific. So like how much leeway do you give him if he fumbles again next game? Like what do you do? What's the threshold where you've got to say, okay, we don't trust you right now, period. We got to use other guys versus we're going to ride this out because we know how important you are. Yeah, he only played 53% of that game on Sunday, so they did pull him. Kevin O'Connell mentioned there was some unscheduled time off for him, meaning he got benched. He got benched for a little bit. Unscheduled time off is benching. Yeah, we can say that. And what did it amount to do when you just counted through the snaps it was 7 plays over about a drive and a half. It wasn't a whole lot in terms of being in the doghouse. They needed him. They were down in that game. You're right. They know when push comes to shove, the drop off is so dramatic to Cam Akers, who was shipped out of Houston for a bag of peanuts. So Cam had some good moments. I do expect them to maybe lean on him more early in games, maybe first down, second down, early in drives as well, before leaning on Aaron Jones to try and score at the end. I do wonder if that's a better mix they can strike, because they started out of that game leaning on Aaron because he was coming off a 100-yard game in Chicago when he looked great, other than the fumble. So it's that push-pull of like they don't want to rest him when he says he's healthy and he's bounced back the way he has from a hamstring strain, from now the rib injury seemingly. You're going to trust him and you're going to put him out there. And if he's not saying that it's a problem in terms of the ribs and the fumbling, you're not, as a coach, you're not going to know. So it is interesting position they have with him, because they have such faith. He has such trust in what he can do and how he can secure the football. But Yeah, if he does this again, I do fully expect them to do what they did last week, maybe for a little bit longer. But when the game is close, like all these games are, he's eventually going to be in at the end.
Maybe a final thing here. I thought Arizona more or less outplayed the Vikings for the vast majority of that game, whether it's offensively or defensively. What were you seeing that they were doing that allowed them to basically outplay a team that was at home with a better record?
Yeah, it's the yardage, right? It's the fact that Arizona all game seemed to just move up and down the field, and the Vikings obviously struggled, had just 75 yards of offense at halftime. Because Arizona moved it at will, they only had 4 drives in the first half. 3 of those end in those third down sacks that I talked about. So Arizona with Kyler Murray played an efficient brand of football. They're very well coached. Drew Petzing, the former wide receivers coach for the Vikings, comes in there with knowing that I got a quarterback who is not going to read and decipher all these coverages. He's not going to sit in the pocket, be Peyton Manning. He's not going to find the route adjustment needed against this disguised quarters coverage or whatever. What he is going to do is he's going to run around like a chicken with his head cut off, and he's going to make a ton of plays. And we're going to make quick first read throws for him that get the ball out to Trey McBride, who caught 12 passes, even though he was a focus of the Vikings coverages, which is insane. And Marvin Harrison Jr., who was also a focus, but got limited a lot more before Fabian Moreau was on him and got thrown on. So to me, I saw a really well-coached offense from the Cardinals that was trying to take every little grain that Brian Flores was giving them. And then the story of this win for the Vikings was the red zone. It was the fact that the Cardinals made 6 trips inside the Vikings 20. They scored 1 touchdown. The Vikings made 4 trips into the Cardinals' 20-yard line. They scored 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. Like, that's what separates you. Each side missed a field goal. Each side had ups and downs. But when you got into the red zone, the Cardinals were unable to puncture that Vikings defense. And it's a credit to their coverages. It's a credit to their tackling. And even without Stephon Gilmore, they were able to get it done, which is pretty impressive because they were without Ivan Pace as well. And you could tell James Conner went for 60-some yards. It was the first time, I think, a running back top 50 yards on them since that Los Angeles game. They just weren't as solid against the run, which was also part of it compared to what we're used to seeing.
And their blitzes weren't as effective. I mean, their first sack of the game was
catch the guy
was Grenard. Yeah, but they were barely getting pressures on him. I think there were 3 pressures all game. Like, they just weren't, even when they dialed up blitzes, they weren't really getting to him. And that was a little bit concerning because I think the Cardinals had given up 5 or 6 sacks the week before in that loss to Seattle.
Yeah, and there were some. I think part of it's Ivan Pace is one of their best blitzers, like just pass rushers. He's not the most cerebral guy, but he's just really good at bending around people and getting there. Cashman hasn't looked, in my opinion, the exact same the last couple games. I'm not sure what's exactly going on there. And then with their pass rush, it's Van Ginkel or Grenard. And if those 2 guys aren't getting there, they don't have a whole lot else. So to me, I do think that it puts a lot of onus on those edge guys. And one thing that stood out to me was after the game, I think it was Grenard mentioned that we knew going in, they did not like to use their tight ends to chip any edge rushers because these guys are such a big part of the Cardinals passing game. So I do wonder if they went in thinking we were going to get a lot more free runs as edge rushers, because the Cardinals did not do that. They went into the game and said, we're going to chip you almost every play. They respected Grenard. They respected Van Ginkel, which is why I think Van Ginkel's pressures mostly came as an interior guy. When they would move him kind of inside and he'd get some pressure up the middle. The Vikings did have some counter punches to that, but again, it came down to good coaching.
Play Redmond more, by the way. Jeez, man, he had like 2 tackle for losses and like a 3-play stretch in that game.
They've got some, they found some guys that credit Brian Flores, scouting department Inc. over here. Like, ever since they brought him in, they've been able to find these kind of defenders that he'll get take a liking to during training camp, kind of bring them along slowly. Whether I'm thinking Ivan Pace, obviously a huge one, undrafted 2 years ago. Redmond is a guy that's shown up. Tillery was a free agent find this past year as well. And then obviously the big free agent class of Cashman, Van Ginkel, Grenard. These were all guys that were brought in after Brian Flores came into this building for the Vikings. So he's got a huge impact. And you're right, Redmond's shown some things, and they've got some defenders who some really nice role players. You would like some more, I think, blue chip kind of guys, which is why you need Stephon Gilmore healthy as soon as possible.
Yes, indeed. Well, we'll see what the film tells us next week. I'm sure Kirk Cousins always loves to review the film too. Maybe he'd like to join us next week. I don't know. We'll see. At the very least, it'll be me and you, Andrew. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, Mike. Thanks.
Great stuff from Andrew. Now, after he and I recorded, we did learn from Kevin O'Connell that they're hoping the Gilmore injury isn't all that serious, like a low-grade hamstring strain. They're not even ruling him out for the Falcons game, but I'd be surprised if he plays against Atlanta. So that'll mean if he's not able to go, that will mean more Fabian Moreau in this game coming up against the Falcons. We'll see. I bet Gilmore misses a couple games at least, but if they're right about this, if it's not as serious as it could have been, they probably dodged a bullet, got him out of there at the right time, didn't push him. They are going to certainly need him more down the stretch, almost certainly in the playoffs. They're like a 99.8% chance of making the playoffs at this point, according to ESPN. Still got a chance to win the division. Big one Thursday night, Lions and Packers. So get Gilmore healthy because the season definitely hinges on his hamstring to a large degree. It's poetry time on Daily Delivery. My good friend Keith Rashad joins me as usual. They keep winning, man. 5 straight. Again, second 5-game winning streak of the season. I believe you have 4 poems to commemorate the second 5-game win streak. Is that true?
Well, let's hope so. That's what I said before we started recording.
You better then. If you don't, I'm going to come get you, and it's coming right out of your paycheck. Okay, let's go.
That's right.
Coming right out of your podcast paycheck. Okay, let's go.
Stupid NFL. Your app is like a monkey's butt. Like John Marthaler.
Oh, man. A lot of old grievances creeping up here.
Look, I know I've talked about this before. We'll get to the game.
That's fine.
I know
That's
I've
fine.
talked about this before.
It's okay.
Okay. But I hate that stupid NFL app, right? I didn't get a chance to watch a game live, even though I'm in Arizona. My son had a bunch of hockey stuff and whatever.
Yep.
I got the thing so that I can watch the game after it's done. That's fine.
Right.
Okay. But I finally sat down. I was ready to watch this game. I wanted to sit, enjoy, and watch the game. Problem is like I'm watching this thing, and they have this cut, and for some reason, things are cut out of the actual game, right? I'm watching this thing, and it wasn't just the 45-minute cut this time. I had some time to sit and watch the full thing. But like all of a sudden, we get to the 2-minute warning, okay? We get to the 2-minute warning, and then they start showing the commercials, and I fast forward through the commercials or whatever. Mm-hmm. Next thing they're showing is it's 1:12 left, and the Vikings are kicking off.
What the heck? So they missed
gaps.
They missed the game-winning touchdown?
No. Then this is the first half.
First half. Okay, sorry. Okay, got it. First half.
But then in the third quarter, right, Vikings stop the Cardinals, right, early on, or there's some drive or whatever. Next thing I know, there's some commercials. We fast forward, and then the next thing they're showing is some graphic about how great the Cardinals' defense has been today, and then they have the ball back again. The Vikings were the one who just forced the punt. There's missing chunks of this stupid game, and this stupid billion-dollar league cannot get its app right, and it just drives me nuts that we are all addicted to a product that does not care about its fans enough to get this stuff right. Some stupid AI bot, right, cannot properly cut up or record the game. They have the commercials in there. They have the commercials in there, so you don't even have to stop recording. Oh, I hate you, NFL.
NFL doesn't love you back, just like you don't love John Marthaler back, sounds like.
That's right.
Second one, please.
Seasons of whimsy are starting to pile up, like Tinder hookups.
Are you on Tinder now?
I don't know. I'm not saying one way or the other.
Okay. Well, there you go.
All I'm saying is like this is starting to. It's not as sort of magical or out of nowhere like a couple of years ago.
No.
But this is 2 out of 3 Kevin O'Connell seasons where we are getting unexpected success.
Well, and they're winning, the games they never used to win, right? Like there was 11-0 in one-score games in 2022. Now they're 7-1 in one-score games this season. So that's part of the whimsy. We've talked about this. This year's team is certainly better than that 2022 team. But for the whimsy, I'll agree that it started to feel a little bit more whimsical as the season has gone on.
Well, and part of it is that they are a victim of their own success, right? They look so dominant in those first 5 games or 4.5 or whatever it was, right? They were just beating everybody up. So the fact that they're playing closer games and it's a much more reasonable than it was in the first few weeks of the year seems to make some people grumpy.
Yeah.
It seems to make some fans grumpy that somehow this is a bad thing. I'm looking at you, John Marthaler. Seems to make people unhappy that they are somehow a 10-win team. Like, this is so frustrating and awful that they're still winning, but not doing it with the panache that some of us would like, right? Without the style that comes from the soul of a poet. But they are winning. This is a 10-win team. This is a team that is not that far from having the number 1 seed in the conference, for heaven's sakes. This is good. This is fun.
Yes.
This is so much better than the end of the Mike Zimmer era. This is so much better than Tice and Childress. This is so much of that. Childress had one great season.
Yes.
Zimmer had one great season. Right?
Yeah.
This is starting to feel like a pattern.
Yeah. I think this guy can coach. I think he's proven that he's a pretty damn good coach. I still think he's better at like the behind the scenes stuff than maybe some of like the in game. Like, as a play caller, I don't think he's like the greatest play caller of all time, but I think he's a very good head coach. Just in general, I do think that. Let's hear the third one. Let's go.
Okay. Life seeks out balance. The sweet chases the bitter. Good job, Aaron Jones.
The last thing that Vikings fans need is a visit from another old ghost, right? Like, this year, like, the kicking seems to be pretty good. I know Romo missed one yesterday. I think that was his first missed field goal. Like, Reichert had been perfect until he missed the 2 when he was hurt. I'm assuming he'll be back at a certain point, but whatever it is, you feel okay about the kicking game, and that's like the number 1, like, Vikings phobia. But if you had to pick a second one, it's remembering all those Adrian Peterson fumbles at the wrong times, especially the 2009 NFC title game. And yeah, you don't need that creeping up. I think Jones will get this solved. It seems like a blip. He's never really been a fumbler, but yeah, that's 4 fumbles in 3 games. That's not good.
Well, a couple of things. One is, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I will say it going to my grave. If the Vikings had only committed 4 turnovers in that 2009 NFC Championship game, they would have gone to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
It was the 5th turnover that really killed them.
Yeah.
Right. If they had only committed 4 turnovers, they would have won that Super Bowl against a marginal Colts team.
Correct.
Okay, so there's that. The other thing to say is, sometimes we forget that these guys can have bad games, right? And the freak out after Sam Darnold and the Jacksonville game was in some respects understandable, because he's not a proven quantity. He hasn't shown a Tom Brady-esque type trajectory or anything that nature. But these guys are going to have bad games every now and then. And Aaron Jones did not have the success that he wanted to early in this game. No, but he has been a wonder for the Vikings this year. Correct. He's been exactly what they needed. And so for him to get a little bit of redemption in this game was something that felt really good and something that we can feel positive about, which is apparently not much for a 10-win team for some Vikings fans.
Well, and I agree. And he's going to be...
Looking at you, John Marthaler.
He's going to be vital to anything they want to do here, right? Because the depth chart behind him, Akers is fine. Like, he did some nice things Sunday. Ty Chandler's got, breakaway speed, but he doesn't usually get to use it because he can't find the right running lanes, things like that. But Aaron Jones has been one of their very best players all season, except for in that game Sunday where he almost gave the game away because those fumbles were costly, and dropping that touchdown pass was also looking like it was going to be pretty costly as well. But yeah, I love a good redemption arc, and I think Aaron Jones is terrific. Like I think you're right. I think it's just a bad game. It's a guy who's kind of fighting through some injuries, but he owned up to it. Like he said everything you want him to say. Like, it's on me. I'm gonna get it fixed. This isn't who I am. And with someone who's got that much, kind of credibility banked, you can believe him. Unlike some people. Looking at you, John Marthaler.
Yeah, John.
Poor John.
Yeah.
I love you. We love John. I'm just piling on now because you are.
Yeah, well, that's John for you.
It's what we do. Okay, last one, and then we got to go.
All right. Fabian Moreau. More like Fabian Morose. Hey, am I right, folks?
Well, as listeners heard before you and I talked, much to your astonishment and eternal bitterness, the season does kind of hinge a little bit on old man Stephon Gilmore's hamstring right now, because the depth chart at cornerback is not very long. They sure found Fabian Moreau with a couple pass interference penalties, a couple completions. He did make a nice play, I think, on either the second to last drive or the last drive to knock a ball away. But yeah, I mean, they don't have a lot there. Like they a lot of times they play three safeties because they're just like, best we can do, three safeties. We don't like our corners. Here's three safeties.
Yeah. First of all, calling Stephon Gilmore an old man when he is almost a generation younger than me is just where we're at in life.
He's a football old man. He's a football old man. But yeah, he's been great. Like, he's great.
Yeah, well, he has been great. And, we talked about this early in the season as well, too. If he goes down, it all starts to crumble.
It does.
If some of these key pieces, we saw, I keep forgetting the linebacker's name, who, when he was gone, that's when they lost their two games. Blake Cashman. That's exactly, yeah. So, it's fragile. It's in a fragile state, but that's the way the NFL works, right? You lose this or that key piece, and it's going to be real trouble. But he is clearly one of those key pieces. If they lose him, then the entire defensive backfield looks way more slippery and not quite what you want it to be. Than it does with him in there. So, yeah, let's hope things are okay. Let's say things are not too bad there.
Well, and that's what they were saying after the game, right? Like that they were even, like I think Gilmore was even lobbying to go back in. I think they were just playing it. They're mostly playing it safe, but also like a hamstring strain for a veteran. You don't want to test that and make it worse and turn what could be. You would imagine he might miss a game or two if it's not that bad. Even if it's not that bad, like you don't mess with the hamstring. But if he's able to come back for, kind of the stretch run against those tough NFC North games, that's maybe just fine. So you don't mess with that. So hopefully it is kind of the erring on the side of caution, not, oh no, this is really a serious injury and he's going to be out for a while kind of thing. That's how they're framing it for now. But things can change. We didn't think J.J. McCarthy's knee injury was going to be all that serious, and then he was out for the year. So you just never do know with these guys.
All right, time for me to go do my real job.
So much easier to accurately talk about the Vikings when you have the soul of a poet. Hope you enjoy these poems every week. We've been doing it for a few years now. The ups, the downs, mostly the ups lately. Vikings win a lot of close games. Ben Gessling had a good piece about that and just kind of their success in one-score games under Kevin O'Connell. What about that is, not always statistically sustainable, but what about that is maybe more sustainable than we might think. So they're getting it done right now. It's not been as pretty as some might have liked, as Keith and I talked about, but at the end of the day, the results are the results. The wins are the wins. You keep stacking them up. Nobody looks at style points at the end of the year. They just look at, did you get in? Did you give yourself a chance? And the Vikings are certainly doing that right now. Well, let's finish with the cooler quickly. I'll probably do more on the Wolves on Wednesday's show. Just we'll have a little bit more time. And you might be saying, well, you have a podcast, you have unlimited time. I try to keep these like fairly tight. I don't want to usurp all of your time, and I already knew we had 3 guests. We're going to be stacking up a lot of stuff, so I think I'll go deeper on the Wolves on Wednesday's show, but certainly worthy of a mention here. Like I said, 109-80 over the Lakers. Anthony Edwards didn't have a great game. He had like 8 points, but everybody gets in on the fun. Rudy Gobert was masterful on defense. Dante DiVincenzo, one of his best games. Julius Randle looked good. Like, maybe the start of something. We're not really ready to say that yet. I mean, this is like their first really good game in a long time. Yeah, they beat the Clippers the other night, 93-92. Like, maybe at the very least they're starting to reclaim that defensive identity, which is going to be critical, because when the offense isn't there, the defense is something they can lean back on. They haven't had that consistently this season, but they've had it more the last couple of games. Maybe that's something they're starting to find. Maybe the communication is there. Maybe they've aired their grievances enough to know that the dialogue is there. Now they can go forward and have fun and start playing the way they want to play. 10-10 after 20 games. Now the real judgment can begin. That will do it for me today. Like I said, probably go deeper on the Wolves tomorrow. Also, Randy Johnson on Gopher Football. Chip Scoggins, the last installment of Football Across Minnesota, heavy on Division II football, and Minnesota State Mankato this week. So good stuff coming up on Wednesday. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Stay warm. We'll talk to you tomorrow.